Welcome back to We Talk Boxing. And this video is just going to be a quick, video in regards to my thoughts and initial reactions, to this incredible fight between Joyce and Joseph Parker. Now, my initial assessment, to the fight, like obviously the first couple of rounds, give or take rounds 1 to 3, do you know what I mean? I thought obviously it was a good lively round, by both guys. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, both guys coming forward and stuff, but for me, it was Joyce who was coming forward more. He was pressuring Parker. Do you know what I mean? And he was pumping, his jab out constantly. You know what I mean? Which affected Parker. You know what I mean? Parker didn't really kind of know how to handle that. Do you know what I mean? And it was the jab that was keeping the distance at times between both guys. And obviously, it was backing Parker up. You know what I mean? Backing him up onto the ropes where he could pretty much only throw his single shots every now and again. Do you know what I mean? But although he was only throwing them single shots, he was landing with the bigger shots and more eye-catching shots. Do you know what I mean? And he looked strong, he looked fit, he looked motivated, and that's the one thing that I did like about Parker, because we've seen in previous fights how, Parker comes out and he's all slow off the going. You know what I mean? Kind of gets, probably takes him a couple of rounds to get going, sort of thing. But in this fight, you know what I mean, him and Andy Lee, you know what I mean, have been working really hard, and you could see it in this fight. Do you know what I mean? As I said, you know what I mean. Even though he got outworked, you know what I mean. He just for me, he just looked sharper, fitter, and like I said, more motivated. And he was catching Joyce. You know what I mean. He was throwing them big shots, and yeah, he was hurting Joyce. But you know what I mean. Joyce is a juggernaut. Do you know what I mean? He's durable. You know what I mean. He'd walk through a wall if he could. Do you know what I mean? But you know what I mean. Obviously, rounds 3 to 5. You know what I mean. Obviously. Parker, you know what I mean, obviously he got hurt, you know what I mean, quite early into the third round, you know what I mean, by Joyce, and you know what I mean, which was quite noticeable. And I actually thought, you know what I mean, Joyce could have probably got a stoppage in that third round, you know what I mean, because he put a lot of pressure on Parker, hurting him back and forth and that. But obviously the latter 30 seconds of that round 3, obviously Parker came back, landed some big shots of his own, you know what I mean, some hooks and uppercuts, and again that hurt Joyce. But I mean, it was too little, too late for me, and for me, I gave that round to to Joyce. Do you know what I mean? Round 4, you know what I mean, was a good round for Parker. Do you know what I mean? I had Parker winning that round. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, he looked a bit more energized, and you know what I mean, he was throwing more, landing more, and stuff. So yeah, I gave him the fourth, and the fifth round for me, you know what I mean, was a Joyce round. Do you know what I mean? His constant pressure and work rate, you know what I mean, was just far superior. Do you know what I mean? He was throwing and landing more punches as well, which, as I said, you know what I mean, Parker was mainly just throwing conservatively, or you know what I mean, as he was being backed up towards the ropes. You know what I mean? You know what I mean, he was throwing because he couldn't do anything else. He couldn't go anywhere. Do you know what I mean? And that was kind of the wrong tactic, because it allows, you know what I mean, Joyce to kind of pin him down in one place and just keep the distance and throwing that jab and right hands and just outworking him. Do you know what I mean? And obviously, you know what I mean, at that point I had, you know what I mean, Joyce up 4-2 going into the seventh. And do you know what I mean? And in the seventh, you know what I mean, it was a better round by Parker. Do you know what I mean? But he was still outworked for me by Joyce. You know what I mean? Joyce was just outworking him and catching him a lot more. You know what I mean? A lot more punches being thrown, and you know what I mean, and just looked like the dominant guy in the ring. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, it was one of them, and obviously Parker, you know what I mean, caught him a couple of times towards the end of that round, but it just wasn't enough. Parker was just not doing enough, and his corner wasn't telling him, you know what I mean, to kind of step on the gas or anything like that, and he did look kind of tired. Do you know what I mean? So that was, yeah, quite interesting. But I had Joyce up 5-2 at the end of the seventh. Do you know what I mean? Going into the eighth round, you know what I mean? Obviously, Parker, again, fighting in bursts, just not enough, not throwing enough, not landing enough. Do you know what I mean? And obviously, not really troubling Joyce. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, Joyce kept coming forward and doing what Joyce was doing. And again, I gave Joyce that round, you know what I mean? Going in 6-2. Do you know what I mean? Round 9 was slightly different. You know what I mean? Obviously, Parker landed a beautiful uppercut in the opening for like open half of the round, and you know what I mean. It was quite nice, but as soon as he landed that uppercut, it hurt Joyce, and obviously Joyce could come straight back, landed his own big shots and stuff. You know what I mean? Instantly. You know what I mean? Which is quite good to see, really. But both guys look really, really, really exhausted. Do you know what I mean? And spent in this round for me. You know what I mean? But again, I gave that around to Joyce, you know what I mean, making it 7-2. But again, it was kind of contrast. Some people could have gave it to Parker, but for me, you know what I mean, Joyce had caused obviously Parker more trouble. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, it was a good fight up until that point. Do you know what I mean? And obviously the 10th for me the hardest round to score, because obviously not a lot thrown by both guys. Do you know what I mean? And obviously the bigger punches probably from Parker, but you know what I mean. At the same time, Joyce was, for every big punch Parker landed, Joyce was coming back with 2 or 3 of his own. So it was quite a tough fight, tough round to score. So I kind of gave that evens. Do you know what I mean? And then obviously into round 11, you know what I mean, which was a brilliant finish by Joyce. And again, I had him winning that round until the finish as well. And it was a brilliant left uppercut. And you know what I mean? Obviously, the punch carried a lot of power and it hurt Parker. But for me, there was a lot of fatigue, which was setting at that point. And obviously, you know what I mean, the the eye, you know what I mean, which was causing him trouble. You couldn't really see out of, you know what I mean, because obviously the punch which you got caught. I think it was, what round was it? Was it fifth round? But anyway, you know what I mean. It was a brilliant finish, you know what I mean, by Joyce, and onwards and upwards for him. So as always, you know what I mean, please let me know in the comments below, you know what I mean, do you agree with my analysis? Do you know what I mean? Did you have something different? Did you see something different? Do you know what I mean? As always, please let me know in the comments below. Please like, subscribe, comment and share for more boxing related content. Bless.